Hello and welcome to the League of Legends Intramural Finals here at Purdue University. My name is Jason Maynard and this is my partner Ethan Tan. We will be your casters today. How are you, Ethan?
I'm doing good. How about you?
Pretty good. Before we get into some talk about the teams and the players, first I want to talk a little bit about what League of Legends is. League of Legends is a 5 versus 5 multiplayer online battle arena, which stands for MOBA. It's a MOBA game. There are 5 roles in the game: top, mid lane, jungle, bot lane or AD carry, and support. The players will play on a map called Summoner's Rift. There are 3 lanes where the players have to move down the lanes and take the other opponent's base. Once they take the base, they will win the game. The series will be a best of 3. First team to win 2 games will take the series.
Well, about this league, this time is our second time around ever of the League of Legends Intramural tournament. This time we have 12 teams and 60 players. Now to introduce the final 2 teams that have made it to the finals. First, we have Church of Thog, and that team is the same team from last League of Legends finals, also known as Team 9.
Excited to see them back. They struggled. Last time they got 0-2'd in the finals. I think we'll get a little bit better series this time because it's going to be a little bit of a rematch.
For sure. And then on the other side, we have Team ZachR is cool. And now they have 2 returning players from former Team 37. That would be Holy and ZachR. But they have a new lineup in terms of the other 3 players. And so we're going to be interested to see what happens with those other 3 players and how they'll change up the team dynamic.
Right, and look for Church of Thog, which was Team 9, to be a little bit more comfortable here in the final setting. And it's also a best of 3, so they've played a best of 3 with us before. So they might have a little bit better idea of how to conserve their picks, maybe save a pick for Game 2 if they lose Game 1, for instance. But I think Zach are cool. I think they're going to struggle a little bit coming out of the gate. Zach, Holy, very, very good players. We haven't seen Bishop in action yet, but he is Diamond 1, AD carry main, so he's always ready to perform on the stage. But it's going to be a really interesting series.
Absolutely. Now to give a brief rundown of all the players that we are watching today. So first off, in Team Church of Thog, we have Fortnite, a D4 mid lane main. And he plays...
a lot of Galio. A lot
sure.
of Galio. He didn't see it last time because it got banned out, but nonetheless, hope he gets it today.
Absolutely. A lot of Galio, a lot of Aurelion Soul. Hopefully we'll see that today. And a lot of Azir.
Yep.
Next, we have Expansion, and he's a D4 jungle main, and he plays some really off-meta picks like Ivern.
Singed Ivern, yep. He does play some Sejuani, though.
Absolutely. We have Rumple, a Plat 4 support main. He plays all the fun supports: Bard, Thresh, Blitzcrank. And then we have Storm, a Plat 3 ADC main. He plays Kai'Sa, Lucian, Misfortune. And finally, Morris, who's a D4 top main, plays Yasuo, Mordekaiser, and Set. A lot of bruisers.
Yeah, a lot of bruiser stuff there.
And finally, for a team, ZachR is cool. We have a new player, Bishop. He's a D1 ADC main. He plays Senna, Lucian, and Twitch. We have another new player, John Aldino, Plat 4, jungle and top.
Jungle top, yeah. Jungle this season, top last season. We could probably see him in the top lane, I would guess.
For sure. Yep. We got, in terms of jungle, he plays a lot of Kayn. He plays Zac. In terms of top lane, he plays a lot of Sion and Kled last season. And then we have, of course, Holy, the carry from last finals.
He is so hard to stop. He's so hard to shut down wherever he's at. He was in the mid lane first game last time. Jungle second game. Took over the game both times. They have to have a plan to try to contain Holy this game.
Absolutely. And hopefully we do see Holy's Yasuo this series. Really excited to see that. And then we have ZachR, who played ADC and mid last finals. And finally, we have a new player, Cool Guy. And
we have no information on Cool Guy.
Yep.
We'll have to see where he goes with this, but we'll be back with you guys shortly with some more action once we get in the champ select.
Absolutely.
Okay, here we go. We are now into the draft for our first game of the League of Legends Finals. There's that Zach band coming from ZachR, or the Zach band, the Galio band coming from ZachR is cool. And there's the Syndra coming from Church of Thog. Kind of expect to see that Galio band, right? And it seems like that Syndra is targeted at Holy. ZachR also plays a lot of Syndra. So that's a really good band that kind of encompasses two players for them.
For sure. Mid lane is probably what we're going to be seeing a lot in terms of the key matchup here. Because if they can shut down Holy in the mid lane, that's going to mean a lot for Church of Thog.
Yep. Oh, we have the Bard band coming out too. He does play a lot of Bard. Rumple McCrumple does. So that's a really good target band. Bard can have some high impact on the map in the current patch. The Cassie band, really good, targeting ZachR too. The Aurelian Soul band too coming through. Really wanted to see the Aurelian Soul, but it doesn't look like Fortnite's going to get a hold of that.
No, it does not. And it looks like there are 3 mid lane bands from Church of Thog really trying to shut down Holy's, a lot of Holy's picks.
Yep. Holy and Zach, both mid lane mains. And we get the Yasuo now. Have to assume that's going to Holy, right? We finally get to see Holy's Yasuo.
Absolutely.
Very, very, very excited about that.
I am really interested to see what they will pick into Holy's Yasuo, how they are going to play safe against that. Maybe a Lysandra?
Holy is a former Challenger player that's currently Master and is a Yasuo main. So I'm very excited to see what Holy can do on this Yasuo. There's the Kindred pick. That's likely going over to expansion, I have to assume. Maybe trying to pick up that Kindred. He doesn't play a lot of it based on his champ pool, but he could pull out the Kindred for us.
There's the Lysandra pick. And Lysandra actually very good against Yasuo because as soon as Yasuo dashes in, Lysandra can just root him.
Yep.
And it's also a very, very safe lane.
A lot of good disengage from that Lysandra.
For sure. And we have the Sylas pick.
The Sylas is really, really strong, especially in the Kindred and Lysandra, because Sylas can grab Kindred R and Lysandra's R. So Sylas's ultimate abilities, he can steal ultimates from the enemy team. And now that he can grab Lysandra's ult and Kindred's ult, those are 2 fight-changing ultimates that now Church of Thog, ZachR is cool, has on their team.
For sure. So Church of Thog is really going to have to rethink what they're going to pick for these next 3 picks. Now, considering that they have Sylas to steal their ultimates, giving them more game-changing ultimates, say like a Moo ult or those kinds of big team fight ults is going to be really changing.
Right. So the Zach pick's pretty standard. I mean, I figured that we would see the Zach from one of the 2 teams in almost every game unless it's banned. The Mordekaiser is really, really interesting because that also adds another very good ultimate that Sylas can take.
Absolutely.
Here's the Caitlyn ban.
So now that mid lane's picked, we'll have to see what Church of Thog starts banning out. They banned out the Caitlyn.
They're taking that away, likely, from Bishop.
Yep, but back to that Zach pick. Zach and Yasuo, really, really good combo. Really, really good combo because, Zach knock up into the Yasuo ult. It's really, really good.
Right. So we have the Taric and Leona. We have some support targets coming from ZachR is cool. We also have another support band coming from Church of Thog. I don't necessarily know why they targeted that Pyke. Maybe it's just a champion that they're like, man, we really don't like playing against Pyke. But there is some history of Taric and Leona over there for Church of Thog. So those are 2 really good bands from ZachR is cool.
For sure. And one thing we might be considering is a Yasuo bot lane. Is one thing we haven't considered. I mean, we're banning out Bard, Leona, and Taric. I mean, those are all 3 bot lane.
With heavy CC.
Yeah, with very, very heavy CC. All counter Yasuo pretty well. I mean, mostly Taric, Leona, but...
They pick Sivir. I don't like the Blitzcrank pick here. Please prove me wrong. The Sivir spell shield is so good against that Blitzcrank, especially if Storm Leon is quick on his trigger and can get that E off all the time. He's going to be able to disengage against that Blitzcrank, and Blitzcrank is going to become useless in the bot lane. And because the Morgana's up too. Church of Thog could grab the Morgana and go Morgana Sivir bot lane, completely nullify this Blitzcrank.
Absolutely. And I also think Blitzcrank is not really...
Draven.
Oh, my goodness.
That's such a huge gamble for Bishop. But Bishop does have a lot of games played in AD carry, considering he's D1. I haven't seen any Draven mastery, though, on his profile.
No, I have not either. But one thing to really consider is the Blitzcrank pick into just the full team comp of Kindred, who can just press R, Lysandra, who can also R herself, Mordekaiser, if you pull him to the back line, Mordekaiser just are your own AD carry.
Right.
So really interested to see how this Blitzcrank will play out.
What do we think about that Janna pick?
Janna, very safe pick, especially into Draven.
Right.
Really helps nullify that Draven early game damage.
Right. There's really good disengage from the Janna Tornado and the Janna Ultimate going against the Zach, the Yasuo, the Blitzcrank getting in there, Silas diving, a lot of good disengage. But Janna is such an easy target for Blitzcrank to grab. She is pretty fast, though. She does get moving pretty quick. She's just such a squishy target that if Blitzcrank can land a hook on Janna, she's likely going to die. But what's your prediction for this game? What do you think about game one?
Game one, I'm thinking it's going to go towards Church of Thog. I mean, we haven't seen the other three players on ZachR is cool, but Church of Thog, really, really good draft, in my opinion. Mordekaiser, Kindred, just like really good team fighters. Lissandra.
Look at this. They're not giving the Yasuo over to Holy.
Now,
they're
that is
sending
something.
Holy. I don't know where Holy's going. He could be going in the mid lane, but are they going to put Bishop in the mid lane with Yasuo and send Holy bot with Linrod? Because I really have no clue.
I don't know either. But definitely a surprise to see Holy keeping that Draven. I mean, ADC's mid lane have started becoming a little bit meta.
Yep, with the Lucian. Yep.
But we might also just see Holy play bot lane. I mean, Holy's been flexing a lot.
That's true. This would be
picks.
in the finals. This would be his third role in 3 games.
Yep.
I really also think that Church of Thog has won this draft. They have some really, really good team fight ultimates. The thing is, Silas can steal an ultimate, but he can only steal one, right? So he has to make his choice quickly, and he has to pick the right choice depending on the fight. So it's if we trust that Silas to pick the right ultimate in team fights, that's going to have a big play. But I do like the rationale that ZachR is cool, has 2 players returning, and they have 3 new players to the final setting, right? And Church of Thog has already been here. I think experience and a really good draft from Church of Thog is going to propel them to a victory in game 1. My prediction for the series, who do you have?
My prediction for the series is probably pointing towards team ZachR is cool. I mean, Holy and ZachR probably will draft a little better these next 2 games if we make it to the third game.
Hopefully they prove us wrong here and they pop off on this Yasuo and Draven. But I just really like Church of Thog's draft in this first game. I also agree. My prediction is that ZachR is cool will win the series in the long run. I think it's going to go to 3 games though. But I think Church of Thog can grab an early victory here. It should also be noted that for side selection, ZachR is cool won side selection for games 1 and 3. So ZachR is cool, did opt for the blue side here for first pick. So Church of Thog will have side selection in game 2. Very excited for this game because ZachR is cool, has so many early game picks, right? You have the Draven, you have the Blitzcrank. Not that Blitzcrank can't be useful in the late game, but Draven needs to have a good early game, right?
Absolutely. Draven needs to dominate lane.
Has to have a good early game.
And with Sivir, Janna is a very, very safe pick. I mean, Sivir can farm from very far back against Draven.
Bouncing Blade, Boomerang, yep. And there's a spell shield against the Blitzcrank.
Spell shield is so good. I honestly think the Blitzcrank was a mistake to pick, but maybe they might prove us wrong. A couple good Blitzcrank Qs can actually turn the entire game around. It's really easy to make picks.
Yep, a popular phrase in solo queue is "we're just 1 hook away." That's all it is, 1 hook away from getting back in the game. So we'll see what they do with this Blitzcrank. Man, I just really, really like that Lissandra pick, the Janna pick, the Kindred pick. There's so much survivability for Church of Thog that it's going to be really difficult for ZachR is cool to deal with.
Absolutely, I think what Church of Thog drafted was a punish the mistake kind of composition. I mean, Lissandra. Kindred, you have the bot lane, Sivir, Janna. They are all very, very safe picks. But if you misstep, especially if you're a Draven, if you lead your axe too far forward, I mean that's gonna get you killed.
Yeah, especially because I think they kind of baited that Yasuo pick, right? They know that he's gonna target Yasuo, right? They know that they want to go for these heavy AD champions and these high mobility champions, the Zach, the Yasuo, right, and the Silas. They want to target these champions. We have Church of Thog kind of said, okay, we'll give you these high mobility champions. We'll just pick some champions to counter that mobility. We'll pick the Lissandra. We'll pick the Janna. We'll grab the Kindred to stay alive after you dive us. Again, the 5th time I've said it. I really like the draft for Church of Thog. We'll see how they play this early game. Have to stay safe. Not too safe, though, because if you start to fall behind this Draven, you start to fall behind this Yasuo, if Zach gets a big lead and becomes unkillable, I don't know how Church of Thog is eventually going to deal with that if ZachR is cool gets so far ahead. There's a lot of toss-up in this game. I just think the experience of being in the final for Church of Thog is going to come through and grab them game 1.
All right. So we will see what happens in game 1. I'm really excited to see. I think the special matchup is probably going to be in this bot lane to see if this Draven can pop off against the safe lane of Sivir and Janna.
Right. So if they... we don't really know where they're putting people yet, right? Because Holy's on this Draven, assuming Draven's going to come in the bot lane. Mm-hmm. But Holy is naturally, he's a mid lane main, but he does play some bot lane, so they could have been messing around. But I don't know why they would put Bishop on Yasuo when he's an AD carry main. Like, why would you send him up to the mid lane? Maybe he's like, yeah, I feel comfortable enough in the mid lane to go there with this Yasuo. But you have Yasuo and you have Holy, who is challenger Yasuo main.
Yeah,
and you don't put him on his best champion.
That is definitely something questionable.
I think it will be a little bit of a mistake here. But here we go. We are now in game, and we're going to get some action. We're going to look to see if they get this invade off, because that's usually something you're going to do with a Blitzcrank. So let's see if they try to take over the bot side jungle for Church of Thog here.
For sure. And it looks like ZachR is cool. Is just going to go for the standard umbrella, making sure no one invades, and not going to play too aggressive right here. So right now we have the Zach in the jungle, probably starting red, and Kindred also starting red. So we can probably expect to see some horizontal jungle pathing.
Right, so we're going to see some pretty standard stuff here. We are going to have Holy in the bot lane with that Draven, kind of like we expected. And they are going to send Bishop to the mid lane. No, Bishop took the cleanse. So that's to get rid of that Lissandra W, so that root.
Yes.
Fortnite does opt for the electrocute on the Lissandra. We have some mastery spamming here coming from Church of Thog.
Oh yeah, they're just having a little bit of fun, loosening up right before the main game.
Yep, and a little bit more chill over here on ZachR's cool side. They like to play it cool, not freaking out and stuff like that. Maybe it's just first time or returning jitters, for Church of Thog.
Yep, and it does seem Draven is going to be in the bot lane, like you said.
Right.
Yasuo going to be in the mid lane, so definitely something we're gonna have to check out. Lissandra actually one of the main counters to Yasuo.
Yeah, I really like the electrocute pick here for the Lissandra. They did lower the cooldown at early ranks on Lissandra's Q recently, so you can actually get multiple Qs off in a fight to proc that electrocute.
Yep.
Oh, here we go.
Blitzcrank playing up. Oh, there is no spell shield from Sivir at level 1, and Draven really punishing that.
Draven taking over this lane right now.
Oh my goodness. Storm taking a lot of damage on that Sivir.
That's going to be dangerous because Sivir is such short range.
Yeah, absolutely. Without her other abilities, early levels, it's really hard for Sivir to farm up. She's really safe once you get all those levels.
Root under tower.
Right under tower, but Yasuo escapes.
Oh,
the flash in from Draven! And that's going to be first blood of Draven.
That is a huge first blood for Draven.
Oh my goodness. And Draven, of course, League of Draven, that passive ability really gives him a lot of extra gold.
Right.
And he
wasn't able to stack it up, though, but it's still going to be a lot of extra gold on that kill. He's going to be able to might even be able to get a Vamp Scepter here. Could potentially, if he farms another wave, get a BF Sword.
BF Sword on Draven is going to be humongous. Oh, and then we have
a gank off top lane.
Expansion. Kindred has red buff and will not be able to finish that. Oh, the flash in. Oh, and he cancels the auto.
The auto attack.
Oh,
there's the no and auto chat, or all chat, sorry. We have a skirmish on the top side. This game is crazy.
Kindred will win that skirmish, though, because Zach is a very front-loaded champion.
He's got to wait for his cooldown.
Oh, in from the 5-4. Oh, that might be a mistake.
From Kindred. Oh, we could get a double kill, though.
Oh, we got a kill on Mordekaiser.
Okay,
Zach's passive will go down.
We'll see if they can clear this out real quick. Yeah, they will be able to. A double kill for that Mordekaiser.
That is going to be really huge. Mordekaiser is actually pretty good against Sylas.
Yes, very
Sylas
good.
Usually likes to play against squishier top laners. And Mordekaiser, once he gets that tankiness, is really going to be hard for that Sylas.
It's going to be tough for Sylas to 1v1 Mordekaiser when he brings him into the Thunderdome, right? When he R's Sylas.
Yep.
So I'm curious to see what Mordekaiser takes on this back, though. I think he'll probably grab the revolver, right? Because that's typically what a Mordekaiser is going to grab on the first back. But he could go like early Merc Treads to counter that Silas.
Yeah, really dominate lane with early Merc Treads.
Blasting Wand and a Ruby Crystal, though.
Opting for that damage.
This kind of indicates that he's going to go for an early Leandries to me. To hopefully start shredding through the Silas, shred through the Zach, shred through the Blitzcrank early on if the fights ever happen, like a Dragon or Rift Herald and things like that.
For sure, but also you could build into a Morello Nomicon.
It could be Morello.
Yeah, which will reduce that healing from Silas. You know, Silas W, when he's really low on health, really annoying to deal with. Yasuo going in for a couple small trades, but as you can see, Lissandra is such a good safe pick into Yasuo.
2-2 early game.
Oh, and we have a Kindred gank on the Yasuo. Yasuo burns Flash.
Good wind wall. Great wind wall. Oh,
yep.
Zach counter
and then Zach comes in. Yasuo misses the tornado, and Zach will just walk away from that. No trades there.
Whenever there's a counter
gank
gank like that, because Zach is such an ability-based... Oh, we have an engage from Silas here. Mordekaiser's going to win this long fight.
Yes, he will. Mordekaiser popping shield.
Draining Zach.
ZachR's Silas, if he gets his W off, he might be able to
come
back
take
on
the
this
skirmish.
fight.
Yep.
Yeah.
But now Mordekaiser, all of Mordekaiser's abilities are going to be up. What I was saying though is this Zach pick, right? Such an ability-based champion. Oh, we have an engage.
ZachR cutting it close. Mordekaiser does not have flash.
Very dangerous.
Yeah.
Very, very dangerous. But the Zach pick, right? Zach is such an ability-based jungler that if he encounters Kindred in the early game, if Kindred kites that Zach out, he's just going to be able to win these extended skirmishes.
For sure.
Man, Silas is having a really tough time against that Mordekaiser. I think we're going to start to see that Mordekaiser CS climb and climb and climb and start to close this gold gap. Because there is a gold lead. Oh, we have Draven going in on Draven.
Chasing down with the W. He needs an axe backwards. Oh my goodness.
This could be a dead Janna.
Oh, Janna goes down. Oh, it looks like...
Oh, they're going to die for the Dragon? Oh, blue team steals.
It's stolen.
ZachR is cool. Takes Dragon. The Draven gets a kill bot lane. Oh my gosh.
And then Kindred goes down. This is looking really poor for Church of Thog. That was a
very bad trades.
Really questionable Dragon right there for Kindred. Especially with Draven.
There was an 800 gold lead on the side of ZachR's. Oh, the big hook. That's
and Sivir's going to go down. Spell Shield does not block auto attacks. And this is looking very bad for Church of Thog.
Stormleon's going to have to be quicker on that Spell Shield.
For sure. And
this is starting to look really, really bad for Church of Thog. This is what they didn't need to happen.
But Zach making a mistake, invading jungle.
Why would he do that?
I don't know.
He doesn't even have any vision of the jungle.
Yeah, and Kindred was up. That is going to be a costly mistake for the Zach.
And now Kindred's going to have Prio to run the topside river and grab that other mark.
Yep. One thing we're going to really have to watch for, the only saving grace right now for Church of Thog is going to be that Mordekaiser top and that Kindred as well.
That Kindred scaling. Yep. Oh, here's the R.
Mordekaiser R sends him to the Shadow Realm. We'll see what he can do.
Oh, he kites him out long enough.
Oh, and the W. That massive healing. Yasuo is going to come up. Presses R, and Mordekaiser is going to go down.
Great roam from Bishop to save Zach. I think Mordekaiser probably would have gotten the Silas there.
Absolutely. Look how low
great
Silas
roam
is
from
right
Bishop.
there.
Great team playing right now. Coming from ZachR is cool.
Yeah, and right now we see Bishop is actually doing really, really well against
Only
Lissandra.
2 minutes ago, there was an 800 gold lead on the side of ZachR is cool. Now we're up to almost 2,500.
Kindred going for this really risky invade.
I think he's going to
now.
have to get out of here. Yeah, he's going to have to leave this. He's going to have to leave this.
Oh, wait. Well, Janna coming in. I think
we have
he
the
does
Draven
have
and the
priority.
Blitzcrank that are able to collapse. Oh, it stole it. They stole it. Did they get the red buff steal?
No. Kindred ended up getting the red buff.
Right. Kindred got the red buff. We do have a collapse now.
Blitzcrank missing the Q. So,
this Draven play 3-0. He already has Bloodthirster at 8 minutes. That is a huge spike. Oh, what a great wind wall.
Yep, wind wall. One of those really, really annoying abilities.
That's the worst ability in the game. Please remove it, Riot. We have a re-engage now from this Yasuo.
Oh, running straight into the Kindred. He does not have wind wall this time.
Oh,
and the R, and then the cleanse.
Yasuo
Yasuo
did
will
get it.
still go down. Zach The Aftershock will not do it. Zach is
This
going to have
game
to
is a
retreat.
fiesta.
Absolutely. It is really, really close, despite the gold lead going heavily in ZachR's Cool's favor. Probably
Man.
because of that Draven.
Yeah,
That Draven
I have
passive.
to assume it's this Draven, right? That Draven passive, guaranteed extra 150 gold regardless on every kill.
Yep.
So that is going to be an extra 450 gold that comes from nowhere
Yep. And
on the
that's-
side of ZachR's
And
Cool.
that is a 3-0 Draven.
Here's the
Kindred
Kindred
invading
skirmish.
jungle.
Oh, no!
And the Yasuo's right there. Kindred presses R. Lissandra doesn't have anything.
Kindred's going to try to
Manages
escape.
root.
Can they get the Zach? Can they get the Zach?
That
Yes,
is,
they're-
oh,
oh,
but
he has
Zach has passive. Oh,
this is a
they're
bad
both
spot.
going to go down, and that
This
is
a
going to
bad
be
spot.
that's going to be a double kill for the Yasuo. and
Now we're
that's
3,000 gold up for ZachR's Cool. This is exactly what Church of Thog did not need to happen, right? They needed to play safe, maybe try to get to mid-game down 1,000 or 1,500 gold. Not by 10 minutes be down 3,000 gold, about to lose first tower.
Yeah, so what we're probably going to see really soon is
Oh, the Janna shield will save that tower, though.
what we're probably going to start seeing soon is Yasuo and Draven just steamrolling the game. I mean, they're very, very snowbally champions, and with Sivir barely being able to even CS, it's just going to get worse and worse from here. Tier 1 tower in bot lane is going to go down.
We're going to have a pull here from the Blitzcrank. Oh, okay, good spell shield, even though it doesn't land. That Silas double buff, too. He did grab that double buff from Kindred, so he might be able to make something happen in the top lane. There's quite a big gold discrepancy, though, because that Mordekaiser is almost 50 CS up on this Silas. I don't think he's going to be able to fight him in the top lane, even with double buffs.
Yeah. So, Jason, what do you think Church of Thog is going to need to do in order to come back in this game?
Okay, they need to shut down this Draven, right? Because he's starting to stack up again, and if he gets another kill, it's going to be another huge chunk of gold on this Draven. He might have 2 items done by, like, 12 minutes, right? And when that is a huge power spike for Draven, they have to control the Draven. Man, I don't know. They just have to stop the bleeding right now, right? So
Yeah.
we do have 1 dragon off the board. If they can take control of this dragon, grab this Drake. It is an Ocean Drake. Personally, I think Ocean Drake is the best first dragon to get. It gives you some really good healing, which is what they're going to need to survive this. Oh, we do have the Hex Flash?
Hex
Oh,
Flash.
there's no way.
Oh, no.
He has to go down unless they can come and bail him out.
Oh, and nice Lissandra escape. Janna escapes. Kindred's going to go down, though.
That's a bad spot. Bishop's Yasuo, really, really clean. I know we questioned it in Champ Select, but it's really clean.
Oh, yeah. It's absolutely dominating Lissandra. Lissandra is obviously a counter pick to Yasuo. Draven rotating mid.
They're going to try and mow this tower down. They're going to use Draven's lead to try and spread that lead other places.
For sure. And I mean, without anyone on their team really being a tank, I mean, you have Mordekaiser as the main tank. I think Mordekaiser...
He's tower diving.
He's going to go down right
What's
here.
he doing?
Oh,
he gets out.
what? The Triumph
Oh, he's
Field,
gonna
and
get out.
Mordekaiser lives. Look at the moves, the plays.
He is going to get out. I did not see that coming. So the only hope that Church of Thog has right now, get that Mordekaiser in team fights, hope that he can 1v1 Draven or 1v1 Yasuo, and get them out of the fight, right? Who do you think he should ultimate in team fights?
I think he should ultimate probably Yasuo. I mean, you have the Kindred R to deal with Draven.
Yep.
And Yasuo is the one who dashes around. If you ult Yasuo, he can't dash around anywhere except
Right.
through you. So I think it's going to be key. Oh, Lissandra pushing up
Oh,
here.
no.
I don't.
Oh,
no, this
no.
Yasuo is bush camping.
Oh, Bishop.
This Lissandra is going to go down.
Unless the ultimate's up.
Yeah, unless the
What's he
Lissandra
doing? Why
does
didn't he-
have ultimate.
Oh, here he goes.
Here he goes.
Good disengage. Oh,
Oh,
here
One-
comes the teleport.
Blitzcrank coming in. So right now,
Big hook.
the hook does not connect. Right now, I think, although Kindred's down 1-4-3, I think she's still out jungling the Zach. She's invading the Zach over and over again.
Yep,
And-
Zach is taking a lot of pressure from this Kindred still. I know the map is shrinking though, so look for... Oh, we have the disengage from the Sivir.
Oh,
Great
nice
spell shield. Great
Kindred will
spell
come
shield.
in from Fog of War.
This
Kindred
Kindred
does
is
not have
really
red
strong.
buff. Oh, he steals the Kindred R and will escape from there.
Oh man, that Draven's gonna steal the large raptor there.
Yeah, Draven With nobody building any armor on this team, you can't help but think that Draven is just gonna two-shot everybody.
Oh, great
and he pulls
hook.
in the Kindred. Kindred
Good
manages
R.
to press
Good
R.
Kindred R.
And Kindred will escape using the Kindred R and Janna's shield.
Okay, here comes that Yasuo Mordekaiser fight.
Oh,
We
but
do have the
Zach
though.
Zach is coming up.
Janna's
Janna
gonna
will fall. Zach goes in, knocks out Mordekaiser. Yasuo
Oh,
will press
man.
R, and Mordekaiser will go down. Lissandra TP too
A little
late.
bit late.
Oh, looks
She's
like
also gonna
Lissandra
go down, I
might
think.
go down, but Lissandra does have ult, so I feel like Lissandra should
Good
be able to escape.
tornado,
Oh,
and
the
the
flash!
flash!
Auto attack.
Oh my gosh.
Oh,
Everything is falling apart for Church of Thog. Double kill top lane, both to the Yasuo. Here comes the Rift Herald.
you think this Rift Herald is probably going to take tier 2 tower too?
Yeah,
There is-
you have to say so because look, they have Kindred bot side taking the opposite jungle. I don't know. She needs to be backing right now to stop this Herald. And you have two in the mid lane right now. You have Lissandra and Mordekaiser just now respawning. They're going to get another charge off in this middle, in the second tier.
Yeah, look at that Draven damage, taking out a fourth of Janna's health.
That is so much damage on the side of ZachR is cool right now. The Yasuo
Absolutely.
is huge. The Draven is huge. I mean, Silas is not huge, but he's going to start to scale a little bit. And the stronger that Church of Thog's champions get, the stronger that the Silas is going to get with these ultimates.
Yeah, one big thing to watch out for is just the vision control from ZachR is cool. I mean, they have the entire river lit up, and
I
mean,
have to assume as soon as this Baron spawns, they're going to be looking for this Baron if this game isn't over by 20 minutes.
yeah, ZachR is cool. Really playing very clean right now. I mean,
Here comes the
Oh,
Silas over the
man.
wall. You have an engaged
Silas?
mid lane. Everything is falling apart.
Sivir is probably going to go down here.
But she kites back. She lives.
She lives. That
Storm
blows
Leon.
Sivir R.
Draven's going to take the blue buff here and looks like he's going to go engage on that Mordekaiser. Here's the Draven Mordekaiser 1v1 we've been waiting for. Here
Yep.
comes the ultimate.
Oh, he presses R. Draven drops an axe. He still picks up his next axe. Oh, that Bloodthirster Draven
my
healing.
gosh.
Not even close. I think the game is over by now.
Yeah.
I mean, Mordekaiser cannot even.
Mordekaiser was
1v1
about
Draven.
the only hope that Church of Thog had. He has to be able to 1v1 Draven or Yasuo, and he just can't get it done. The Draven's too quick. There's a Bloodthirster and an Infinity Edge already done. The Yasuo is almost to 2 items. Like, there's really not anything that this Mordekaiser is going to be able to do against that. This is looking like this game is going to be closed out unless a couple miraculous things happen, right? If they somehow steal Baron, if they can steal away the next 2 dragons, if they can get a lot of catches on this Draven, on this Yasuo, like, they're going to have to be a lot of things go right, and it just doesn't look like those things are going to happen against ZachR is cool.
Yeah, I mean, with like an 8K gold lead, you got to start taking
8,000
down.
gold.
Yep, you got to start taking down the Draven and the Yasuo. I mean, you see the Draven with the 700 gold bounty, then that's 1,000 gold right there.
Right.
With the 300.
Here comes the
extra for
engagement
kill.
of Draven. They are going
Oh,
to take him
Draven
down.
will go down.
Janna's gonna get the
Unfortunately,
shutdown, though.
Janna gets the shutdown. You really want to see that on either Mordekaiser,
Sivir.
yeah, Sivir, or especially Kindred.
Yeah, this Kindred is going to be their ticket to maybe the late game, and if they could get that shutdown gold on Kindred, that would have been phenomenal to catapult her back into this game.
For sure.
Here they
And-
go on the Drake. They do have 5 here, though, so they can't contest this fight. If they can secure this dragon real quick, this will help them. Here comes the Zach a little bit
Zach,
early.
really early, no backup. Zach does have passive though.
That was a big mistake going
Yeah,
early with no
Zach-
vision.
Zach's gonna go down. Janna R. Yasuo goes in.
Here comes the Sivir
There's
spread.
the knockup.
This is prime for Sivir if she can take advantage of this fight. They're just too
Oh,
strong.
they're kiting. Lissandra presses R.
Here comes the
but-
Kindred in the back line. Oh my gosh.
Oh no.
They're just
Kindred
way
flash.
too strong.
Oh, and that's the end.
Everyone has to scramble away. That was a 4v5 too. Draven wasn't even there.
Draven
Storm's
was-
gonna
yep.
fall.
Oh darn.
I just don't know. There's really nothing that Church of Thog can do. They didn't even get the dragon. They didn't finish off the dragon. They did kill Zach, but it was a 1 for 5.
Yeah, and you know Zach really is kind of dispensable right now. I mean, he's 0-3, and really all he is just an initiator, and also to get that knockup for
Yep,
Yasuo.
for the Yasuo. He's literally just a vessel for this Yasuo.
Absolutely, he might as well just be the Yasuo support. So right now, I mean, Church of Thog really has to take down this Yasuo if they want to get anything. That's going to be
About the
1,000.
only thing they can do is try to get some gold income, right? There
Yeah.
is almost a 10,000 gold gap now.
Now we have
we have
3
the R.
versus 2. We'll see what happens. We have
Oh, he missed his
Draven,
both abilities. He
Yasuo.
was hiding in the bush.
Oh man,
this is gonna be bad
This
for-
is gonna
Oh,
go
big
poorly.
damage from
Yasuo
Mordekaiser,
with
but-
the big R does not matter.
Good pull from the Zach. Smiting to slow down Kindred.
Is slow.
In
and
trouble.
he's going to go down. You see that Draven damage right there?
Zach
he's
will
going to go
catch,
down.
though.
I mean, Draven is just going to two-shot everyone on this team.
I think if ZachR is cool, can push here, they can definitely grab an inhibitor on the bot lane. They're going to push this up, and I think they're going to set for Baron.
Yep. This game not looking good for Thog. Not what they wanted to see coming out. Really,
I don't know
early.
why the Mordekaiser looked for a counter engage, right? I know they backed and I know they bought items because they died, right? But you're still so much weaker than this Yasuo, than this Raven. There's no need to engage right there. You need to play this slow, play it safe, get Mordekaiser gold, get Sivir more gold, get some items, and then you'll be able to fight this team.
Yep. I mean, Thog has a very team fight oriented.
Right.
I mean, Draven really not that great in a team fight. I mean, at this point he is.
Right, because he can one-shot
everybody.
basically anybody. Oh,
Yeah.
that was a really close blitzcrank hook.
Yep. But I mean, with Lissandra ult, Kindred ult, and Janna ult, Sivir ult as well, you have a really good team fight composition coming out of Thog. I mean,
they just let ZachR Cool get so far ahead.
That's what we saw in last finals as well, because Thog really likes to build these team fight heavy comps. Oh, this Draven will go down.
Oh, no.
Greeting.
Lissandra's going to go down to this Draven, man. That Draven is getting stronger and stronger.
Yeah. Lissandra, not good trying to take
Not
that.
in a good
that
spot.
control
She's so
ward.
far up.
Yep.
They're missing 2 towers in the mid lane. Goes all the way up to the mid lane with very little vision. Just a big mistake from that Lissandra.
This is sloppy play right now.
What they needed to do, so this is how you would want to get back in this game, right? You want ZachR Cool to push all the lanes in, have your carries, so the Kindred, the Mordekaiser, the Sivir, farming under tower, gaining gold. Like, try to close this gold gap. Try to close it, grab as many jungle camps as you can, get gold whenever you can, get to those 3 key items that you need for your carries, and then fight. Because again, like you said, you do have a really good team fight composition, but you need to get your carries to the point where they can carry you in these team fights. And if you don't get them there, you're not going to be able to compete with this Draven, who popped off early game. This Yasuo was 11-1, 3 items before 20 minutes, or 21 minutes now, right? Has the IE, the Phantom Dancer, and the Death's Dance. So hard to kill. That Death's Dance is going to make him very difficult to kill.
Yep. And I mean, that's easier said than done in terms of the playing safe. I mean, Yasuo is just, I mean, the Q, auto attack Q brought down Lissandra to 3rd health. It's going to be really, really tough.
11-1.
Yep. With Zach as a really strong engage from Fog of War, you have Silas with all those dashes and the engage, and of course Blitzcrank.
Oh, good
nice
spell shield. Great spell shield.
I mean, it looks like ZachR Cool has the comp to deal with just a turtle composition that, I mean,
yep.
Turtle strategy that Thog wants to do right now.
See how they play this, right? I think the move here is you just push these lanes and you need to get Baron, right?
Yep.
Because it's going to be difficult for you to siege against. They do have some really good wave clear on Thog with the Sivir, the Lissandra, the Kindred has some solid wave clear. Oh, the hook on the wall!
The knockup.
Oh,
Kindred
man.
manages to press R. Kindred will escape. Gets the Janna
Oh, no, she
R.
won't. The Silas follow-up.
Oh,
This is
Yasuo's
disaster.
in. Mordekaiser's already pressed R on Yasuo.
The Mordekaiser is likely going to fall to this Yasuo.
Yep.
Oh, the Silas ends up getting it. Oh my gosh,
Silas
this is
gets the
disaster.
press.
This likely could be the game they could end.
Oh, the flash in. Janna will go down. Lissandra also will go down.
We have... Okay, there we go. We're back.
Inhib's going down in the bot lane.
This
With
is
a
gonna be
minion
the
wave
fall.
pushing up.
Do you think they go for the
mid
end
lane.
here?
I think
they're
they
gonna
do.
go for the
they
end.
still have over 15 seconds on all the other.
Yep, the GGs are going to start to come out. I think everyone senses this game is over.
Yep.
The Draven
look
2
at
shots
that
the Kindred.
Draven damage.
Oh my gosh.
That is insane.
ZachR is cool. A 23-minute victory in game 1 completely rolled Thog, just like in the previous series.
For sure.
I don't know how Thog deals with this.
I don't know either. Thog's really really drafts these team-centric compositions. They need to draft some other compositions that do more in the early game. Maybe something early like I don't know, a Pantheon, a Talon in the mid lane.
That Kindred is good early game. Like, she has some good damage and can scrap against that Zach in the early game. But like you said, like, Their mid laner, Lysandra, not great in the early game. She needs to scale up into that mid game. Mordekaiser, not great in the early game, right? You're gonna need some pressure from your lanes that can come help that Kindred in the jungle. Like you said, Talon would be a really good pick. I think in the top lane, maybe if we can get a Darius or something like a Garen that can help fight in here, just to help kind of stop the bleeding. Something that can be strong early game. Whereas if ZachR is cool, kind of gets ahead in the early game or into the mid game, something strong in the earlier mid game that can stop the bleeding.
Yeah, for sure. Something we saw is that Lysandra barely rotated at all with that Yasuo. And, Yasuo roamed up top, got that kill on Mordekaiser when Mordekaiser was really just smashing that Sylas, and that just turned everything around top lane. Zach and Yasuo once again dived Mordekaiser, released Rift Herald, got 2 towers.
I think that was the point where things started to turn for Church of Thog. Like, things turned early, but I think Church of Thog still had a chance until the Zach Yasuo dive top lane. They drop the Herald, take 2 turrets, huge gold discrepancy at that point. I think that's when it starts to slip out of their reach.
Yeah, that was the point of no return right there. I mean, their Mordekaiser was their win condition at that point.
Right.
And killing him twice right there, making him even 3-3. There's just no hope of coming back from there.
That was a tough one for Church of Thog, but let's see if they can bounce back in game 2. Like I said, we like to see something a little bit more in the early game. But we'll be right back to you guys shortly with some more action once we get the chance select for game 2. Okay, we are back for game 2 here, starting with the draft. What are you thinking for game 2 draft here?
I mean, probably Church of Thog's probably going to ban Yasuo.
Yeah,
there we
it
go,
is.
right
There
there.
it is.
They do not want to see Yasuo. I mean, Holy didn't even play Yasuo. It was Bishop that played Yasuo, and he still steamrolled. So,
We do have the Cassie ban, kind of what we would think, again, coming from Church of Thog. There's the Cassie ban, there's the Kassadin ban too, so Cassiopeia and Kassadin coming out, both similar bans from last time. We do have a side switch, so Church of Thog opted for that first pick. There's the Galio ban. Everything is looking very similar to game 1 in terms of bans. Yasuo comes out because of the pop-off last game. Syndra ban again, so there's Syndra, Kassadin, Cassiopeia.
That's a standard 3 mid lane bans. They really do not want to see
any of those on Zach or Holy.
Or
Bishop. Yeah, we don't know what Bishop is capable of now.
We have 3 mid laners that could possibly flex.
So much flex going on here. Do we think there's going to be an Aurelion Soul ban here? Oh, Bart.
No Aurelion Soul
We
ban.
could get the Aurelion Soul.
Fortnite is an Aurelion Soul main, so we might see
There
that
it is.
coming
There's
out.
the lock.
There's the Aurelion
Yes.
Soul. And now the good thing about Aurelion Soul now is that he has a lot of roaming potential.
There's
and
so much. He can get in the bot lane so quickly.
And that's something we were talking about, is that to stop the bleeding, you need to have someone that roams. Lissandra, we didn't really see a lot of roaming potential there. But at Aurelion Soul, though.
I'm so excited for this Aurelion Soul.
Yep. And so now we have Ornn picked on ZachR is cool.
They're
you can only
covering
help,
Darius?
but think that's top lane.
I have to assume that's top lane, right?
Yep. Ornn's
That's
probably
probably
top lane or maybe support, but probably top lane.
For John Aldino, probably.
Mm-hmm.
Here comes the Echo in the jungle.
Jungle or mid,
And
but nowadays he's more played all jungle.
Yep, and mostly probably going to be jungle Echo here. Now though, Echo is really really good in Aurelion Soul because you can get inside of his stars, put some damage on him, and then get out if you really do need to because of that speed boost from your passive. There's the Lucian. That's going to be big for Storm Leon. Does play a lot of Lucian. Pretty experienced on that champion. So, again, they're kind of switching things around, right? I mean, Aurelion Soul's good in a team fight, but they do draft the Lucian. If they draft the Leona here, that's
They're
a
looking
big
for
difference than last time.
Hard kill lane. I think Church of Thog realizing that they have to play aggressive in the early game, or they have to be able to keep up in the early game so that they can play it out till late.
I think it's going to be really difficult for them to keep up in Golden Come with Holy, with Bishop, just by farming, just by map movement. So they've kind of realized, hey, the only way we're going to neutralize these guys in the early and mid game is if we take over this bot lane and we try to shut them down early.
Yeah, and one thing about taking
the Corki.
We're
That is
wondering
a
where this Corki
big
is
surprise.
go.
I have no clue.
ZachR plays a lot of Corki, and Corki can either go ADC or he can go mid lane.
Right. We have to assume this is going to be ZachR in the mid lane on that Corki. And probably going to be the Echo Jungle is my guess currently. So we're looking at a total bot lane for these last 2 picks. So look for some bot lane bans coming from Church of Thog.
Yeah, they're probably going to ban Draven again because Lucian Draven's probably
Pike.
the
They banned
best.
Pike last time.
Yeah, Lucian Draven probably the best early game ADCs. We have the Kindred ban. Kindred obviously was a very big struggle for that Zach. It just turns out that Yasuo came and just cleaned up Kindred every single time.
There's the Draven ban. There's the Pike Draven. That Pike Draven actually is really, really good against Lucian because there's a lot to bait out his dash. Then you can counter with a Pike stun. You can counter with a Pike hook. So many things you can do to that Draven. Good job getting that Pike and the Draven off. If we see this Graves, I would really like to see a Graves here.
Yeah, Graves very aggressive, especially early game invading. Graves can actually beat Echo pretty easily early game if he gets red buff.
They could take the Master Yi away here because I have a feeling that they're going to try to go Taric Yi and do some funneling.
Yeah, Taric Yi obviously always very scary.
ZachR is cool, does like to cheese sometimes, so I could see them doing the Taric Yi funnel.
They could do a Taric Yi bot lane. That would be, I wouldn't say exciting.
No. Yeah, I think in that case, you'd have to send Corki bot to farm alone. But, I mean, they already have the Echo. I don't know. I don't know what they're going to do here.
Yep. And going for the Susan, Nasus in the top lane.
Okay, I don't mind their draft, right? Nasus is pretty linear, right? It's farm, big Q late game. I love the Jace pick if it's going to be Jace into Nasus. I think they're going to try and send this Jace wherever this Nasus is. if they do lock in Jace. And I love the Jace pick versus Nasus.
Jace abuses Nasus.
This will make for a very tough time for the Nasus if it is top lane, and it looks like it probably is going to be. And if Bishop holds Jace and they send Bishop top to deal with that Nasus, this is going to be very, very difficult for this Nasus to even get any stacks until like 20, 25 minutes.
For sure. I mean, I do understand Church of Thog's train of thought. I mean, you have the Lucian and the Aurelian Soul to help win early
game, right? Because that Aurelian Soul can get to bot. You can 3-man bot really easily, even without your jungler, right?
Yep. And then you have Nasus and Hecarim as assurance for the late game. Of course, they're very good team fighters as well. You have Leona also for the engage. So I really like Church of Thog's picks. But ZachR is cool with a really, really solid draft right here. I mean, Echo beats Hecarim pretty hard early game. Hecarim's really squishy. Even after his first item, he usually likes to build Trinity Force.
Something that's really popular in Korea that I keep thinking about is if they send this Jace, because like the question also is, where does this Ornn go, right? Yeah. Where are we going to put this Ornn? Something really popular in Korea is to send Ornn mid. It's really, really popular because Ornn can get to bot lane really easily. Big fight-changing ult that he can roam bot with. He's really has some really good base damage, and he can neutralize a lot of mid laners, right? So putting this Jace top to abuse this Nasus, and then you could throw this Ornn mid against Aurelian Soul, make it a farm fest.
And you have Corki in the bot lane.
Yeah, I think that's what's going to end up happening. I think you're going to put Holy in the bot lane with Corki, Taric, Echo jungle, and you're going to put Ornn mid.
Well, Ornn mid, also very, very good against Aurelian Soul. Ornn has that sneaky damage of a tank that he should not have. I'm just going to throw that out there.
He should not have that.
But he also has that unstoppable dash, which really counters Aurelian Soul. He just dashes straight into Aurelian Soul. So he can't do anything. He can't stun the unstoppable.
And that's a lot of CC for an Echo jungle to gank for, right? Yep. Again, another configuration of this team could be Jace Taric bot, Corki mid, and Ornn top against the Nasus. I really have no clue where any of this is going, though. The only thing that I'm pretty sure about is Echo is going in the jungle.
Yep.
And Taric will be in the bot lane somewhere.
Yeah, ZachR is cool. Really, really enjoying flexing all these picks everywhere. And it's going to be difficult to see where they're going to be.
Yeah, I think, so they had, right, we talked about the train of thought earlier with Church of Thog, right? We talked about how they picked the Lucian and Leona to help with the early game. They picked the Aurelian Soul for the roaming potential to help their jungler, to help their bot lane, help their top lane, right? And then they picked the insurance of Hecarim, Nasus, particularly Nasus for the late game. ZachR is cool, realizes that they want this insurance, and they pick the Jace to take away their insurance, right? If we have Jace coming up against that Nasus, they completely take away the insurance that Church of Thog has with the Nasus.
Yeah, because Jace, of course, can all-in Nasus really, really easily.
Level 2, he can almost get a full spell rotation at level 2.
Oh, absolutely. Jace is quite the menace in the top lane. So we'll have to see if it's either Jace or Ornn. Ornn also has that sneaky damage, but not as much as Jace in that early game.
I think our featured matchup then, if this Jace does go into the top lane, is going to be that top lane. How does Jace play this top lane? If he completely denies Nasus that farm, which he should be doing. If he doesn't, that Nasus is going to be able to scale up. But what if it's Ornn in the top lane? Then where does our featured matchup switch to?
I think the featured matchup probably switches to bot lane. We got to see if that Lucian really...
It'd be against Jace Taric then.
Yeah, probably Jace Taric. Whether Lucian pans out against Jace Taric. But this top lane's definitely going to be something to look at. I mean, Morris did really, really well with that Mordekaiser last game.
He's feeling some momentum. Like I have a feeling the conversation went something like this. Hey, guys, put me on Nasus. I'll carry late game.
Yeah.
Probably how the conversation went in their Discord. But I think we just need to keep watching that Nasus timer, right? Yeah. Nasus is a time bomb.
He is. Once he gets those 200 stacks, 300 stacks,
500, 600, like it keeps ramping up and it scales infinitely. If this game ends up going late game, that wither, like you're going to have to pay your wither tax, right? That's what we call when you have to buy a QSS.
Yep.
Malzahar, Warwick, Nasus, you have to pay your QSS tax. Yes. And the whole side of ZachR is cool, has a lot of damage, and it's something where, for instance, Echo might even have to buy a QSS. Like the whole team could potentially have to buy a QSS and pay the tax if this Nasus gets big enough.
Yep. Also, though, I guess ZachR is cool, kind of inadvertently also cover late game with that Ornn pick. Because, Ornn items are really, really good in the late game. They can They can buff your ADC or
Right.
your mid laner, whatever carry you have. It's just free gold. just
Everyone
laying
gets an
around.
extra buffed Ornn item, and Ornn gets 2.
It's
That's 6 items worth of extra stats added to your team that completely buffs up your whole team if this game goes late enough.
Yes.
So, man, I don't know. What do you think? What's your prediction for this game? What do you think?
I mean, with the momentum from last game, I mean, I do want to see a game 3, but I think ZachR Cool is going to come out once again swinging.
I agree. I think this will be a 2-0 for ZachR is cool. But please, Church of Thog, prove us wrong as we're in the rift now. Let's see how we set up to start.
All right, so we have Jace going in the mid lane, it seems, and Ornn going top.
Everything is completely off of what we kind of thought in Chance Select. Ornn top. Again, we do have the Taric bot lane. Gonna be with the Corki is what it looks like. Haven't seen Corki AD carry in a long time. Season 4-ish, right? Corki's been a mid laner for a very long time.
Yep.
This is a throwback.
They're invading right now. Aurelion Sol, not good at invades. If y'all didn't know, when Aurelion Sol stands in bushes, you can still see his stars.
You can still see his stars.
Oh, yeah. I played Aurelion Sol for 2 weeks, and yeah, I'm not very good
Learned
at
that
him,
the hard
but
way, huh?
I do know that.
Yeah.
For sure.
Let's see how they... I figured Church of Thog would kind of do a setup here. They do have the Leona, which is really strong early. But, man, I don't know. I would have liked to see the Jace top against the Nasus. I think the Ornn would have held up fine against the Aurelion Sol. Shutting that Nasus down is going to be huge. And I don't know. I mean, the Ornn could prove me wrong, but the Jace has such an easier time shutting down that Nasus. And that Nasus is the ticket for Church of Thog to get to that late game.
Yep. So right now we see Lucian buying Cole. I don't think I agree with this Cole buy. I mean, you need to get really ahead on this.
It just does not give you the stats that Doran's play does. Like,
yeah.
I think this is a huge mistake taking this call.
Yeah, but Corki also going for Cole and Jace as well.
I have actually not seen this before. Like, I haven't seen 3 people start call before.
Oh, Corki pushing up. Taric in the wrong spot.
Oh,
Taric lands a
counterstun.
Q on Leona. Leona does not have Aftershock. And a quick trade in the bot lane. Now we see Echo clearing all but his Gromp in his blue side jungle. Rotating
It looks like he's
top.
maybe going to try to get level 3 quickly off of that red buff.
Nass is behind. That's going to
Oh,
really
here
hurt.
comes the engage.
Lucian going in.
First
and
blood.
Storm gets the
Leona.
first blood. Oh, Leona gets the
Crumple's
first
gonna
blood.
get the first blood, but
Yep.
they're going to share some gold here, some first blood gold. Lucian is going to get about 115 of that gold. Leona's going to get 400. That's a really big early kill for Lucian Leona. This is going to make it really, really difficult for Corki moving into the mid game.
Absolutely. Corki, all he wants to do is sit back and farm to level 6. Then
This
he can,
is exactly what they needed for Church of Thog.
for sure. Church of Thog realizing they need that early game, and that is perfect right now. Morris is farming pretty safely. That Grassland dying hurting a little bit, but
Yeah.
Nasus can heal out.
If he can get this wave back
right.
just outside of his tower, that's a perfect spot to just start farming stacks. Get a freeze going. It's going to be great for that Nasus.
Yep. So now we see Hecarim and Echo trying to contest that top side scuttle. We'll see what happens. I mean, Jace does have lane cryo against
So much
Aurelion
damage
Sol
from that
early.
Echo.
Oh, Aurelion Sol with the
Cooldowns
E
are
in.
down.
Misses
he's gonna
his
get
Q.
it. He got him.
Oh, he got him down. That phase
Can they
rush
kite
helping.
this Jace? Can they kite this Jace out?
Oh,
this
Jace
is
gets
gonna be
it.
hard.
They both
Double
have
buff
double
Jace.
buffs.
Oh, and the
Oh,
orange roaming.
Aurelion Sol still has flash though. He
Q,
should be able
Q.
to escape. The Q escape does not have to burn flash. Both mid laners do have double buffs. This is really nice for both mid laners.
We have an engaged bot too. Oh, this Taric's
Oh,
gonna go down
Taric's gonna
again.
go down once again. This is gonna make it very, very difficult in the top lane. Leona, very good pick right now.
Such a different start than game 1. Church of Thog comes out doing exactly what they need to do. Leona Lucian looking for fights in the bot lane. They get a kill into that Aurelion Sol. The Aurelion Sol is going to be able to roam and impact the map. So much is going right for Church of Thog. The only person they drop is the Hecarim. Leona gets... Oh my gosh, they're playing hyper aggressive.
Absolutely. They do not know where Echo is, so I think they should play a little back now. I mean, Hecarim is bot side. But you expect to see the Aurelion Sol either counter roaming the Echo,
Right.
or just helping Nasus scale up top. I think that's what we're gonna see from the Aurelion Sol. He's gonna start roaming pretty soon. Once he backs and gets that Dark Seal, he'll push out lane very, very fast. And Aurelion Sol so fast with that phase rush.
Here comes the gank from the
Hecarim
Hecarim.
gank.
There is no flash on the Jace.
Yeah, Jace is a little exposed right now, but he does have red-blue buff for that slow.
Right.
He'll get away pretty clean with that Jace E.
As long as this Aurelion Soul stays even with this Jason farm, I think Aurelion Soul wins this moving into the mid game, because Aurelion Soul has such a bigger impact mid and late game than Jace does. Jace is really strong in the mid game once he gets his 2 lethality items, but he starts to fall off late game as people start to build armor, get a little bit more tanky. It's just his damage is very burst oriented, and it's a little bit hard to pull off in the late game. Still can happen if he gets the right target, but in a team fight setting, he's going to struggle a little bit compared to this Aurelion Soul with a lot of AoE damage.
Yep. Also, one thing to note about Jace, once he does get his what is that lethality item that has increased
Yumu's?
attack speed. What am I thinking of? The lifesteal.
Oh, Sanguine.
Sanguine Blade, yeah. Once Jace does get that Sanguine Blade, he is a split pushing monster.
Yeah, I'm curious to see what he opts for here, because a standard Jace build, currently the most popular, is going to be Youmuu's Duskblade, Edge of Night. Or Youmuu's Black Cleaver, Edge of Night, right?
Yeah.
If he does opt for a split push oriented game, he could rush that Sanguine Blade, you're right, or maybe get second.
And I think that might happen to help counter like the Nasus split. I mean, Ornn is there, but soon Nasus is going to start landing Qs on Ornn. That's going to start hurting a good chunk. And it looks like bot lane is winning really, really hard right now. Laying the stun on this Lucian.
Oh, here comes the Ignite from the Taric.
But Lucian
good disengage. Great disengage. I was going to mention earlier, Leona is so good against Corki because of her W. Her W gives her armor and magic resist, and Corki deals both physical and magic damage.
Yep.
Here comes the disengage, hopefully. Oh, he has to burn the R.
Oh, Nasus is really getting hurt right now.
There's that damage from the Ornn we were talking about.
Damage that he definitely should not have. Both flashes blown in top lane, and the tank battle ends. Oh, we have Echo pushing bot lane.
Double flash from the top lane.
And we have, the Butch camp right now.
Church of Thog does secure the dragon.
The Leona Q. Oh,
wow,
and he will go down
over this
instantly.
early game. They are really taking over this early game.
John Aldino is not having a good time in his jungle right now. Hecarim,
no, he is really struggling.
Hecarim, Lucian, Leona, all working in sync right now. And it's just not going well for Holy in the bot lane. This is everything Church of Thog needed to happen in the early game. Oh my goodness!
Is he gonna fall? He is gonna fall to ZachR.
Oh,
there's that sneaky Ornn damage again.
Nasus goes down. This isn't too big though. I mean, Ornn with 1 kill isn't gonna change the game.
He is 12 CS down. Here shortly we will get a Nasus stat counter up for you guys. But here comes the Nasus TP. Stack all these minions back up. Last hit with that Q. Just keep farming that Q up, because that is your late game insurance. That's all Morris needs to focus on. If he dies a time or two more, that's okay as long as he keeps scaling.
Absolutely. Now Echo pathing down while this Hecarim is also in the bot lane. Man, Hecarim is all around this Echo. He's just reading this Echo.
Oh, the engage from Leona. The TP from the Ornn.
TP. Aurelion Soul's roaming down. Echo's down there too. Hecarim chooses the back.
We do not have a TP from Nasus though, so he could push this tower and get some heavy damage because the Ornn TP was basically wasted.
Absolutely. Nasus really loves to get that.
Here we go. Here comes
plating.
that push.
Nasus just waiting, trying to farm up all those Qs.
Big Q last hits.
Now Jace pushing the lane in. And Ornn taking that long walk all the way to the top lane. Nasus is for sure going to get 1 or 2 plates right here. And that is what Nasus really loves to do. And that's 1 plate. Lucian opting to buy for the Hollowfield's Warhammer, and as opposed to the Manamune from Corki. And that's going to give a huge advantage towards Lucian. I mean, he has so much attack damage as compared to Corki. Until he upgrades that Manamune into a Mirror Mana from spamming all those abilities, Corki's going to be really far behind in terms of damage against Lucian. So Corki's going to really need to just farm up right now and hopefully not get engaged by the Leona Lucian. Now it seems Aurelion Soul is gonna back. We're gonna see if he's gonna buy the Rod of Ages right now. That's usually the main item. Yeah, Aurelion Soul goes. Corki using his Empowered Valkyrie to escape his package to escape that Leona R. And that's kind of a waste of package, but it does prevent him from dying right there. Oh, now Jace is roaming top lane.
Oh, Tarek gets on the Lucian, though.
Hecarim, Tarek will fall, but in the top lane,
gonna come back.
right now we're seeing Nasus is going down.
He's having a tough time up there.
Yeah, you do not want to steer Nasus.
We trade 1-for-1 on the map, so Tarek's going to fall, but the Nasus is going to fall in the top lane. Let's see what they do with this.
Yeah, they can't. The problem with this is they can't really take any tower plates. Oh, this Hecarim's going to go down right here.
That's
a
greedy.
mistake.
Here
It's going
comes
to
the
be
Lucian fadeaway calling.
really difficult to push this lane and take tower plates.
Oh, the flash!
The flash E, and he will go down. Lucian's down. Leona's going to go down. This is not looking good.
Wow. Look, so they had such a great early game going for them, and they have one big mistake play. Now they're down 1,000 gold.
Absolutely. And it all stems from trying to push in a Corki lane. It's really difficult because Corki just spam his R, especially now that he has Man Immune. It's really hard. He can just spam R as much as he wants, and he's just going to keep getting more and more mana for that.
Lucian is about to finish that Cole off, though. So is Corki. They both started Cole, so they're going to get a big gold spike soon. Corki should finish it off this wave. Got a little bit of some farming going on in the mid lane. Aurelion Sol is holding his own against this Jace. This is really, really, really important.
So
Here comes the Hecarim gank. 3v2 bot lane.
the Tarek R comes out. Corki will be
Huge
saved.
Tarek R. Corki will go down, though.
But he blows Lucian R. Oh, man.
They held the Leona R.
Leona's just a CC machine. That Tarek cannot move
Huge.
anywhere.
Is he going to go down?
Does he
He
ignite?
does drop from the
Oh,
red
man.
buff. The red buff gets it.
And now with Dragon coming up, I can't help but think that they're just going to get a free Dragon right now. It's Ocean Dragon, so it's also very, very nice to have. It just really, that early game regen. Jace is starting to path towards bot lane. Now, if Leona gets greedy here, she could fall to Jace right now. Oh, Jace uses the Blast Cone.
Oh, doesn't get the W up from the Echo. Jace is going to come bot. Will take down that Lucian. Could get a double here.
Oh, no.
Aurelion Sol shows
That
up.
Aurelion Sol using that zoning Q. Oh,
Good
he
flash. What a
flashes
great
the
flash from
Aurelion
Jace.
Sol R.
Turn back. Oh my gosh,
Hecarim
this is a
comes
huge
back,
fight.
but Hecarim's pretty low right now.
Church of Thog needs to disengage here and get out of that fight. Man, this Nasus is having an awful time in the top lane.
Yeah, Nasus really does not want to lose that top tower too early.
No, he does not, because once he gets out of that, oh man, it's going to be really difficult to farm.
Yeah. So, Jason, what do you think Church of Thog really needs to do to really solidify what they have right here in the bot lane?
This Hecarim is so far ahead of this Echo, up in CS. Has 4 kills. He needs to stay active on the map, right? He's doing a pretty good job of that. I think your time limit... Oh, we have a very good engage from this. Oh, and look at that, half health. Another engage from the Hecarim.
The Hecarim with that W healing is so sneaky.
Oh, wow. So
and
much
Hecarim
damage.
will live right there. Oh,
Nasus
but
is gonna live?
Nasus is going to go down. And Orin does not fall either. I would say tower race, and it looks like ZachR is going to win that
They
tower race.
will
for
get that first
turret.
turret. Man, that's really, really tragic for this Nasus. They will hopefully trade this bot turret, though, so they will get some gold back on the map. We didn't talk about it either, though, but Church of Thog did take 2 dragons. Now they're only 2 dragons away from Soul. We got an Earth Drake. We got an Ocean Drake, right? So as we move forward and we think about what this is going to look like moving forward, they really need to prioritize these dragons, because this seems to be one of their win conditions, right?
Yep. And they're probably...
We will grab the Echo will take the Herald here. But what Church of Thog needs to do is keep spreading this lead that Hecarim has built, right? So the Ornn, 3-0, right? He's now going to be out of lane roaming. He's going bot. They're looking like they're going to try and engage bot and maybe try to get that bot tower. He needs to keep hovering this bot lane. Lucian's really far ahead. Try to keep spiraling this Lucian ahead. Get
Yeah.
this Lucian kills, right?
Because once this Lucian gets behind, he
It's gonna
becomes
be
pretty
really difficult.
Yeah, pretty useless, especially against something like a Corki. Corki far outranges Lucian
Yep,
once he
and
gets
such
to
good scaling on that Corki as we move into team fights.
Oh, yeah. Especially with the Corki buffs a couple patches ago.
Oh, man, here's the package.
Corki
He's
using
going
the
to
package.
blow up Leona?
Leona escaped. She is way too tanky.
Man, I just can't keep help but... They had such a good gold lead early game, Church of Thog did, and after that bottom lane fight, completely gone, right?
Yep.
So now they're almost now
2K.
they're now 2K down after that tower falls.
Yeah, and even though this Echo is really far behind, it's just the other laners just come in and help and just take over Expansion's jungle. I mean, we saw that all of the last game. I mean, that Zach was getting bullied by that Kindred, and then it just ends up happening.
Right.
That Yasuo and Draven can just stomp all over the
What we're
jungle.
seeing here, way better early game from Church of Thog, but we're seeing the same mid game that we saw last game.
Yep, it's starting to slip away, but keep in mind, Church of Thog does have Nasus and
Again,
Hecarim.
there's that insurance. See, this is the lane that I think they needed early game, right? They could definitely shut down this Nasus. They did a good job of it with the Ornn, but Nasus was... Oh, here we have an engage from Leona. Wow, great kill. That's huge. Again, get this Lucian more gold. Keep the gold income flowing for this Lucian.
Absolutely.
The
And
ping goes out for the Infernal Drake, too. They've realized that this Infernal's coming up.
yeah, this Infernal is going to be huge. Both top laners do have TP. Nasus can utilize this a little more because he is top lane.
Right.
He
He can push
can
top
try
lane.
and take as many towers as he wants until it comes Dragon time. While Jace cannot rotate as fast.
Right. Push this in for this Lucian. Get some bot lane prio. Oh, I think they're gonna catch. They're gonna be able to catch Corki. Oh, he had the flash.
Nice Corki flash right there. Hecarim still chasing.
Uh-oh, the Ornn TP. Oh, he completely
he
whiffs the
the
R.
ult. But that Ornn damage is way too much. Corki finishes off the kill. Aurelion Soul coming in late. Ornn looks
Will
like
pick
he
up-
will fall. Hecarim gets that huge
Oh,
shutdown.
Nasus just stacked Echo.
Oh, man. Jace is still up top.
This Aurelion Soul
This
has so
Taric
much control.
is in trouble right
Oh,
now.
great
Nice
flash.
Oh,
Oh.
and the Aurelion Soul snipe with
Great
the
R
R.
from Fortnite. That is huge.
Yeah, and now
So
with...
this ends up being a 3-2 for the side of Church of Thog. Now they're going to be able to prio this dragon and completely take control of this.
Absolutely.
Can they secure dragon number 3? Jace has to run there now if he's going to have any chance of stealing this. I don't think he's going to be able to get there. They're going to give up drag 3.
And this is going to be really huge because now they're only one dragon away from getting Dragon Soul. And now Dragon Soul is really good for this Aurelion Soul and for this Lucian. Gives Lucian that extra damage he needs for poking.
Dragon Soul is going to be awesome. That Lucian engage, the Leona engage, Aurelion Soul ult, Nasus Q stack. So much extra damage is going to come down for Church of Thog if they can secure one more dragon. Speaking of Nasus, soon we'll get you guys a check on... Oh!
Nice
Great flash from
flash.
Lucian. We'll get you guys a check on those Nasus stats shortly.
For sure.
There we go. We have 387 stacks on that Nasus. 387 around 20 minutes. That is so many stacks. We're going to be pushing 400 at 20. That's a huge queue.
Yeah, now Nasus can, once he takes that top tower, he can start grouping and really start smashing.
I think the only champion that's going to be able to survive against this Nasus is going to be this Ornn. I don't think Jace can do it any longer.
Yeah, and Taric definitely can't do it.
Oh, they're
in
going to
terms
two-man
of
him. They're going to two-man him. Here comes the Jace. Nasus is in trouble. Really big trouble
He
here.
is in trouble. He's already
He needs to go
popped
after the Jace. He needs to go after
Yeah,
the Jace
Jace
here.
is the main damage dealer. Nasus cannot... Oh, the Q heal, but not enough. Aurelion Soul
a
really
re-engage.
late.
Re-engage
Hecarim
from Church of
misses his
Thog.
ult. Bishop will go down. Ornn is on the wrong side of town. Will they be able to catch
They
him?
can't because they have to go stop the bot side. I think Ornn's going to be able to get out.
Orki's taking mid lane right now.
Oh, great dodge.
They're all
Great
around
dodge.
the map. Oh,
it doesn't
the
matter,
Echo
though.
R.
It does not matter. Great Echo R. Man, I really thought Storm Leon was going to be able to pull that off there, but the Echo R is just too much healing. Great reset, and he got the Q off for the passive proc.
Yep. Not only that, but the Echo R landed directly on top of that
Yeah,
Lucian. And
that's
as we go
really
later
hard.
and later, once Echo starts getting those big damage items,
That's going to hit even harder.
Yep. Echo R is going to do even more damage.
We do have the Muramana finish for Corki and Trinity Force. That is a massive spike in the damage for Corki. We're going to really start to see him blowing people up even more than he already has been. He's almost 200 CS2 at 20 minutes. This is going to be really, really good. A lot of good income coming here from this Corki.
Yep, this Corki, even though his Tarek kind of instant lane.
I ain't going to lie, he did. He's 0-7.
Yep, Corki did get a
This Orin is going to fall, though. There are a lot of good trades coming here, especially on the side of Church of Thog.
Yep, Orin will go down.
They need to fight mid now that this Orin's down. They need to fight mid. They have the advantage.
Yep. Now, if we look at all the lanes, mid lane is actually quite even. Even though this Jace has died one time, he's still 60 CS over this Aurelion Soul right now.
Yeah, there is such a huge difference in CS across the board for ZachR is cool.
Yeah, you see Aurelion Soul has that Rod of Ages, and even though it's stacked up 7 times, you have Jace with a fully stacked
he's almost 10
Muramana.
CS per minute.
Yep, and Black Cleaver. I
Yeah,
mean, there's
he
a
opted for that
full...
Muramana. That's a very interesting.
Yeah.
It definitely delays the spike that you're looking for with Jace, right? Muramana helps with the late game scaling, but if he had invested in 2 lethality items early, he would be blowing their entire team wide open. Could even probably blow up that Hecarim if he wanted to with a full spell rotation.
Yeah. But I think Jace's build is actually not too bad right now. I mean...
The Muramana, he got it stacked pretty early. This Echo, I think, is going to fall.
Wrong side of town, he's going to go.
Oh, he does flash away, though.
Oh, Echo, always so slippery. This Corki's taking a lot of damage. We'll see if
everyone's half
Church
health
of
on
Thog
Church of
wants to
Thog.
go with this.
Oh,
Echo will
Echo
go down. Tarek ult. Hecarim goes
down. Here comes
down.
the Ornn. Oh,
Jace coming
Aurelion
out
Soul's
of
in a
nowhere.
bad spot.
Aurelion Soul going down. This is a bad team
This
fight
is a
right now.
really
They need
bad
to
team
disengage. Leona going to go down.
Lucian's going to get ran
on
down.
the wrong side of town.
This, I think, will be Baron for ZachR is cool. They have to go to Baron, right?
Yeah, they have. It's pretty much a free Baron
they have
right
a
now.
chance. They have a decision to make. They could go for Baron now. The respawn timers, though, for Church of Thog, if ZachR is cool goes to Baron, takes Baron and backs, this could open the door for Church of Thog to run to Dragon and snag that Infernal Soul.
Absolutely.
Let's see what they do here if they back
Soul
after the Baron or not.
starting to tick down right now. And as I was saying, the
30
Jace,
seconds.
The Jace build of Black Cleaver Muramana, although it's not the full lethality build, I think it's a lot better for a team fight.
It does guarantee a lot more scaling as we move into the late game with that Muramana because you're going to get more damage from that Muramana as we move closer and people start building armor.
Yeah. Now, it looks like Jace is going for that Sanguine Blade. You have the Serrated Dirk and the Vampiric Scepter. So he's going to go that for split pushing.
They do recognize that the Dragon's up, so they all collapse to the Dragon. Let's see what happens here.
Yeah, they haven't backed yet.
Ooh, that Ornn face checks.
Oh, that Aurelion
A lot
Soul.
of damage coming from the A-Soul.
But that Ornn is so tanky.
He's so tanky. He will start to...
Ornn's
going to go down.
Jace will
goes
go down.
Dragon's
half health. Corki trying to burst it down. Echo does have smite,
okay,
and
Echo
he will
does
take
get
it
it.
down. Echo
They
are
delayed
not
the
enough
soul.
to save him.
This is huge losses. If they can get all 5 here and nullify this Baron, Corki, I think, will go down.
Yep, Corki's going to go down.
That's going to be double buffs also are going to go over to the side of Church of Thog. He's just going to stall as long as he can. The solution is in the mid lane, though. He should get that mid tower. Huge win. Huge team fight win for Church of Thog. Even though they don't get the soul, they get a lot of gold back. Take 4 Barons off here. This is really, really big.
Yeah, now all you have is Tarek on Baron.
Right.
And you really want Baron on your split pushers like Ornn and Jace.
Right. So they do have 1 Baron saved. They should, hopefully they'll be able to catch this Tarek ahead of time and get rid of this Baron. But look, they're going to try to take a second tower too. I don't know. This is probably a mistake sticking around for this Nasus. They're starting to, yeah, here we go. They're going to leave. Good decision. So we have McCrumple getting some vision on the top side. There's that red buff up. Look for, I think Corki should go straight there. They could have maybe tried to camp that red buff because they don't have a lot of vision in the top side jungle. Maybe get a catch. But they're going to start grouping mid with this Tarek who has Baron. Start shoving down this mid lane. Take a couple turrets. Get a little bit of that map pressure up. Because again, now the game has shifted away. Now the prize is that Dragon Soul, right?
Yep.
Especially for Church of Thog. If they can secure that Infernal Soul, that's huge. We have an engage here from Aurelion Soul. It's going to come back. That tower is going to fall.
Yes, it is. Now, Aurelion Sol is actually going to have a lot of team fight pressure now that he's gotten revitalized. Scepter
Yep.
has a lot of slowing potential. Really annoying in all these team fights. And Nasus is also starting to stack.
Yeah,
So
that Hecarim is still so big, too. He's really difficult to kill and does a lot of damage.
Yep. So now we have
Oh, engage from Leona. He gets the Jace.
the Jace.
The Jace is in
The
a bad
Jace
spot.
will fall really early, and
Oh, the
that's one
flank
thing
from
they do not
Hecarim.
want.
That's
Echo will
three
go down.
That's 3
Orin
down.
is going to go down.
That's a
Tarek,
triple. Tarek's the last hope.
he's not going to escape. And Corki is
Where's
stuck
Corki? Corki's top
pushing
lane.
top.
They're going to 5-man mid.
They just wasted that Baron right there, and 4 people are going mid. Nasus is going to go catch top wave.
Corki's gonna
They're
start the back.
probably going to take 2 towers right here.
They
Really-
should be able to get an inhibitor off this, too.
Really, really good support.
Great engage.
Engage.
Fantastic Leona ultimate. Great engage from the Hecarim from the back. And then Aurelion Sol with the Lucian just start shredding everybody that they line up for them. Yeah, they should be able to get an inhibitor here.
Yes, they will.
As long as they focus all... Yep, here we go. They're going to be able to get this inhibitor.
This is what Church of Thog wanted to play out. That Leona was really, really key in winning that bot lane. And right now, this is just the classic
That Lucian is
support
massive.
difference right now.
Yeah, huge support diff.
Support diff and also jungle difference right now. Echo is getting outclassed by the Hecarim. He does not have the same utility as the Zach.
Right.
Um,
I would really like to see them... I would like to see something like the Zach pick, right? I want some more utility from the side of ZachR is cool.
Yep.
I feel like they picked a lot of, apart from the Ornn, I feel like they picked some like solo queue pop-off champions. And they're starting to fall off as we move into this late game team fight.
for sure. Now, Jace opting to go for the Umbral Glaive. Of course, vision control, very important.
Vision wins games.
Vision wins games. So we will see. Jace probably with that Village Water Cutlass is probably going to go
Blade of the
board.
Ring King.
Yeah, which is going to be really good. I think Jace is going for this full team fight. He's going for the Black Cleaver and the Bork for
Shredding.
Nasus,
Yep.
Hecarim, Leona. They're so tanky. And even the Aurelion Sol with a Rylai's and a fully stacked Rod of
Right, that's a
Aegis.
lot of health.
Yep, a lot of health. So the only really squishy person is Lucian, and so I think this is a really smart move by Jace.
Yeah, I like pivoting away from lethality and going for some like armor and magic and armor shred and some like on hit health shred, right? The benefit of the Blade of the Ring King also allows. Oh, we have an
This
engage.
Tarek on
Bad
the wrong
spot.
side. Oh, that
This is a really bad
poor
spot.
positioning. This
Oh,
Tarek
man.
making mistake after mistake.
Oh, and 9.
Tarek.
That's
Not
really
what you want to
difficult.
see. Now
This
it's Aurelion Sol
chase
can
down from the
chase.
Aurelion Sol. Oh, that was a really odd Valkyrie flash there from Corki, but he does end up getting away.
Yeah,
This
Aurelion
does
Sol.
secure. See, there's that split push Jace.
Aurelion Sol getting that stun. This Echo will go down.
The Jace, though, is going to be able to just start shredding that mid lane.
Jace will go down probably, but if he takes tower, he'll probably win.
Jace is going to pivot back on the tower.
Corki's gonna go
gonna
down.
fall. Jace is going to try to just troll them around to get them away from Dragon, but I don't think it's going to happen.
Yeah.
That Dragon is so big as long as he can secure this. This Ornn is good. They don't know that the Ornn is there. They can't see the Ornn. Now they see the Ornn.
Yep, Leona. Oh, Leona's going in.
Oh,
They're
man.
going to be
Ornn's in a
fine.
bad spot.
It's
Let's see if they can burn
EPN.
this down.
And
They
have
will secure
Dragon
Soul. That is so big for this team.
That
Church of Thog
is
securing
huge.
the Infernal Soul is going to catapult their team fight even farther, making this very, very difficult.
Jace blows flash, but that's not going to be enough.
He
3
should
versus
fall here.
1. It's over.
With the
oh,
soul.
wait!
Oh, well, he
Aurelion
got
Sol
the
goes
Aurelion
down.
Soul.
He
So much
takes
burst
the
damage from the
300
Jace.
gold shutdown. Aurelion Sol goes down. He's now 6-2. And now the
Jace
gold
gets the
lead-
Blade of the Rune King now, too.
Yeah, but with those good couple team fights, Church of Thog is now really into the game.
Right.
The gold.
The gold is dead even. We are
It's-
100 gold apart. They're clearing that ward. We might even start to get like even dead even, right? So we are very, very close in terms of gold. It's all going to come down to these fights, and I think whoever can secure Baron now is gonna have a really large advantage and take this game.
Yeah, Baron buff really going to be nice on Church of Thog's team because Nasus loves to split push.
Right. You can
And-
spread this Baron into multiple lanes with Church of Thog, whereas ZachR is cool. They can spread it with the Jace, but they really need the rest of their team together.
Yep. Nasus likes to split. Lucian actually can split pretty
Right.
well as an ADC because he does that mobility.
And Hecarim can get into fights so quickly, he could even split push too with that Trinity Force.
For sure. So
It's all
This
about
Baron-
Baron vision right now. So what Church of Thog is hopefully doing, right? The Lucian just reset. Hopefully he did not pick up a ward. Hashtag solo queue. But he really should have picked up a couple pink wards here to start spreading around this Baron pit. And that way they can get some control over this topside jungle, because right now there are only 2 pink wards sitting in Church of Thog's inventory. And they really need 5 pink wards out here to take complete control of this Baron vision.
Absolutely. And this Nasus has a lot of stacks right now.
We'll get you guys a stack check in just a second.
I mean, this Nasus really is going to be a monster in team fights right now.
Yep.
They have the Hecarim engage. They have Nasus. Oh, they're going to start Baron right now.
Nasus has 570 stats.
Jace is on the wrong side of the map right now. He has Ignite, not Teleport. So he probably will take
that inhibitor. Oh, Lucian
will go down from the package. Corki does go down from that aggressive package.
Great turn. The Terror Cult comes down, does not save Corki in time.
Yep, and it's...
Oh, it's going to be a...
Aurelion Sol goes down.
Oh, is Echo going to get away?
Do they have the damage for this?
I think Echo's going to get away.
I think this is a really good macro play from the
They're
side of
stalling
ZachR.
out. Oh, great
Look
stun
at
from the
that.
Echo.
Oh,
Okay,
Echo
he will
go down.
The inhibitor does go down, though. Jace goes bot, takes that inhibitor. That's huge for map control.
Yeah, and they weren't able to take the Baron. Now it's going to be a whole lot harder for Church of Thog to take Baron, because now the bottom inhibitor is down. Super minions are going to start spawning.
That is a 200 IQ play.
That was a really, really good macro play.
Now we have the Baron up. The Elder Dragon should be spawning soon. You have a bot inhibitor down for Church of Thog. This seems to be the theme with how this series has gone, right? They have somewhat of a lead, and they throw it away. This is exactly what happened last time, too. They start to build a little bit of a lead, and then they make a mistake that tosses their lead away.
Absolutely. The gold difference is still very, very similar.
Yep, so we're about 1,000 gold up, close to 2,000 right now for ZachR is cool because of that inhibitor take. He took a tower and an inhibitor. They got some kills off of that team fight, so the gold deficit does start to climb. Now, with this gold deficit, they can use that hopefully to get some more vision. Everyone pick up pink wards, move your vision up, and now we're going to be able, for the side of ZachR is cool, can secure that Baron buff, can secure this Elder Drag, and hopefully push through and take this game. There's going to need to be a big team fight from Church of Thog. I think ZachR is cool has started to realize that their ticket to this victory is getting that split push going with this Jace, right?
Absolutely. Split push with Jace and Ornn. They're not going to win a team fight.
No, it's going to be really difficult for them to win a team
Aurelion
fight.
Sol and Lucian and Leona, they're not going to win a team fight.
I think the Tarek's going to go down. Yep, the Tarek's going to go down, but the Aurelion Sol will
Aurelion
too.
Sol goes down.
Oh, they take the
goes
Lucian.
Down. Corki's
This is
still
huge.
alive. Leona, not enough damage to take down Corki. Oh, this is going to look very
Nasus
bad.
looking to scrap with this Jace. Oh, Jace solos the Nasus. That is exactly what you don't need to happen.
Goodness.
They're going to chase down this Hecarim. Oh my gosh.
And that's an ace. How did that happen?
Church of Thog was in control for the entire mid game, moving into that Baron, and everything flips on its head. I think they can look for an end here. I think they can end.
I think they can as well.
There's the GG coming up from the Jace, the Leona, the Aurelion. So I think we're going to have a back-to-back for Holy and Zach.
Looks like they're getting 2 Intramural Champion t-shirts for this semester.
We'll have to get them multiple colors. Oh my gosh. Just think about that. One big mistake throws that entire game away, takes away our hope for game 3. Church of Thog goes down again. 2-0 again, Holy and Zach. Wow. I just can't believe that they tossed that entire game down the drain by just a couple plays.
That's insane. I mean, Church of Thog controlled that entire game up until then. I mean, their Lucian got really fed. They slipped away just a little bit, but they came right back up with a couple good team fights, got Dragon Soul. So they should be winning.
Right. So
the team
Fortnite's
fights.
Aurelion Soul. So let's talk a little bit about that last team fight. Fortnite's Aurelion Soul and Storm Leon's Lucian were way too far up, right? So they both go engage on that Taric. But then we have the Ornn right there to counter-engage when they both dive on that Taric, and they can't get away from the Ornn. And the Ornn combined with the Corki just blow them to pieces.
Yep, and they never target that Corki really, really hard.
Right,
So
that Corki
never goes
just
down.
went all over that team fight.
Yeah, Corki with Triforce and Mirror Manage, you gotta shut him down.
Right,
really,
you gotta
really
get
early.
that Corki early.
Yep. And just that 1000 IQ play from that Jace.
That was huge.
Splitting inhibitor, he does not have TP. And so basically Corki suicides right into the enemy team, but ends up stopping Baron because he kills Lucian. Echo manages to get
of Baron.
Echo manages to get Aurelion Soul, and they no longer have sustained damage.
Right.
Nasus has to rotate bot lane for that Jace. Jace has already taken an inhibitor by then.
Right.
And so they don't get Baron. They don't get Baron while ZachR gets the inhibitor. And from then on, I think it all came down to the Jace build. You know, the Jace build with the Mirror Mana, Black Cleaver,
and the Blade of the Ruin King.
Blade of the Ruin King. That was just a tank shredder. It was built to beat
Did
Nasus.
you see what he did with that Nasus?
That's insane. That Nasus had stacked up to...
He had about 600 stacks by the time he was fighting Jace.
Absolutely. Well over 600 stacks. And he just got taken down.
Yeah,
He just
and
got melted.
again, that Blade of the Ruin King just helped so much with him shredding the inhibitor tower. Shredding the inhibitor. He was able to take that so quickly.
Because Nasus was building MR for that Corki, and then Jace just melts him.
I was really excited for that game because Church of Thog came out so quick, and we could have seen a game 3. But again, ZachR and Holy willing their team back to the victory. Congratulations to ZachR is cool. We hope to see you guys next time when we have our League of Legends Intramural tournament, hopefully sometime in the summer or the fall. But until then, this is Jason Maynard and Ethan Tan, and we'll see you guys next time.
See ya. Thank you.